Treyarch has baited us with this big game augment, and it is absolutely garbage. Now, after spending hours testing this thing against Abominations and a bunch of other elites and nearly rage quitting on stream multiple times, I'm going to expose the truth that nobody else is talking about with this augment. It is just underwhelming. It's mathematically one of the worst options in the entire game, especially because a lot of people don't even realize how bad it is. In our last video breaking down Napalm Burst minor augments, we uncovered some crazy hidden mechanics and found one augment that's completely broken. And today we're going even deeper with some shocking numbers that will change how you build your loadouts forever with this. And I'm going to take you through the hard data showing exactly why Big Game is a complete waste of an augment slot and why you'd literally be better off using almost any weapon in the game instead of relying on this trash augment. So let's break down this trash dumpster augment and expose the truth behind these misleading descriptions that they have. Now, before we dive into the results, let me actually explain my testing process. Now, I needed to establish the exact damage values of Napalm Burst against all enemies, obviously, which we've done in the last few videos with regular zombies and special enemies. But then today we're going to be talking about elite enemies and how Big Game modifies the base values. However, when I'm speaking of elite enemies, I need to make sure you understand. I'm talking about Abominations, Amalgams, and Disciples. HVTs, for the case of Big Game, does not count as an elite for some reason. But they do not burn because of Big Game. However, you can burn them due to them being very close in proximity to a zombie who was burned, right, through basically contact, but not necessarily specifically talking about using contact burn. Now, I conducted these tests on a bunch of different maps, testing all the base damage, bullet damage, chick damage, and all the rest of those stuff. But for maximum accuracy, I captured multiple clear screenshots of enemy health bars with those ticks and numbers, and then counted the exact pixel width of what was removed, the health, and then all of that stuff. So this is the most precise method to calculate percentage-based damage really in this game, since the game doesn't really explicitly show those values. So first, let's establish what base Napalm Burst actually does without any augments and clarify in a very important distinction that I think a lot of players miss. Special enemies, about special enemies, and then how they're different from elite enemies as well. The bullet damage boost against enemies weak to fire is an additional 50% damage per shot, which is awesome. We already know that. That also applies to any kind of elite enemies that are weak to fire. So like I said before, this applies to every bullet, not just when the burn effect procs. Now, as far as the burn effect damage though, like the tick, the percentage of total health per tick, obviously, what we know so far, regular zombies is going to do 20% per tick, so a total 100% across all 5 ticks. For special enemies, you're looking at 2% per tick, 10% total across all 5 ticks. Special enemies weak to fire is going to be 3.5, give you a total of 17.5% total damage from Napalm Burst, just ticking effect. It's awesome. And then you've got elites, so your amalgams and your disciples is going to be only 0.75% per tick. So for a total of 3.75%, that's it. That's literally it. But then obviously elite enemies that are weak to fire, like Abominations, they are at 1.75 times more than base, right? So they're at about 1.3125%. Like whenever we did it, it looked to be right about 1.4%. So it might have just been rounded up in testing. But that's a total of about 6.55% for Abominations, which isn't much, right? And here's a critical discovery that I think completely changes how you should approach Big Game Augment. You can actually burn elite enemies without having Big Game equipped. This just happens when a regular zombie gets procced with Napalm Burst and the elite is like in proximity, which catches them in the spread. So this proximity burning is actually more reliable than depending on Big Game's direct proc rate, which is very minuscule. I mean, it's the same as specials. It's about 12%, 12.5%, but they come so infrequently, it doesn't even really matter. So really the fact that you can burn elite enemies without having Big Game equipped makes this augment like one supposed advantage, I would say, completely irrelevant. or largely irrelevant. Now, this is consistent with what I discovered in my previous Napalm Burst videos. The whole percentage-based burn damage decreases dramatically as we move from regular zombies to specials, and now that we know, even elites. So when I tested Big Game against Abominations, the results showed that approximate 1.3, 1.4% health removed per tick. And the Augment provides a 50% increase to the bullet damage. But the burn tick damage remained effectively the same. And this low percentage burn damage against elite enemies means that even when Big Game specifically is designed for elite enemies, the total burn damage from a full proc is still just around 7% of their total health. So I want to break this down into some perspective with some hard numbers for you, because I think that's going to probably make sense, because 7% sounds fine at first, right? So an elite enemy at higher rounds has approximately about 150,000 HP. With Napalm Burst burn effect, each tick does 1.31% damage, so about 1965 HP per tick. The total burn damage across all 5 ticks will total about 9,800 HP. Now, if we stack Big Game with extension, which means it's going to double the burn duration to 10 ticks, you're going to have a total of 19,650 HP total. So that's 13.1% of their total health. And then when you think about this in terms of DPS, really that 1,965 damage per tick is essentially just 1,965 DP damage per second. And the average max DPS of weapons with no buffs, no attachments, no perks, no anything in the game is about 58,000 DPS, damage per second. That's enough to kill one zombie at health cap at 50,000 HP, right? So that additional almost 2,000 DPS isn't doing anything extra for you at 60,000 DPS. You can only still get that one kill. And when we're talking about in terms of elites, well, it's going to take, if you're doing 58,000 damage per second, if you were able to get straight crits, to the boss, it's going to take you just under 3 seconds anyway to just shoot the zombie or shoot the boss, instead of trying to hope and wait for 10 total ticks to happen to get that 1965 DPS. So the math just simply doesn't work in Big Game's favor, no matter how you approach it. I've looked at this in so many different numbers, and at best you can use proximity burning with thermite and extension, and then you'll be able to get some really good elite damage in that case. But dedicating an augment slot specifically to Big Game is literally just shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, even in a case of using thermite and extension, that would be even better than trying to use Big Game, because you'll probably also proc burn on the elite more often, and then you'll at least get a lot of damage from thermite as well. The reason why this matters so much is because these implications are very clear at this point to you now. Big Game is just fundamentally flawed as an augment for Napalm Burst. I mean, its description is misleading, I guess you could say, right? Like, the augment implies it substantially improves Napalm Burst's effect against elite enemies, but it really only basically allows you to burn it a little bit more on purpose or intentionally. I mean, in testing 12 abominations, about 3 of them burned, and that's 12 abominations across hours of gameplay. And then 2, also using Big Game means that you can't use others better augments like thermite, which would increase your tick damage by 50%. 3, there's a huge opportunity cost. The slot could be used significantly for more effective augments or ammo mods. And then also 4, it just has terrible scaling, right? At higher rounds, that 7%, that percentage-based damage just becomes even less significant, I'll say, compared to just raw weapon damage. And I think perhaps, the most shocking is that this is likely by design too. I mean, this extremely low percentage burn damage against elite enemies is consistent across different rounds, suggesting that Treyarch just intentionally programmed it this way. And they just never really told us how ineffective it actually is. I mean, if you were to, like we talked about in my last video, you can get 52.5% extra damage to a mangler versus this maxing out at around 7%, maybe 13% if you're using extension. And that's it. So instead of wasting a slot on big game, here are some significantly better options. So for elite and boss damage, thermite and extension is going to be great for you. It's going to provide 3 times more burn damage. And then any double tap setup is going to provide consistent DPS increase as well. Obviously, that's going to scale way better with any of those weapons and do even better than what this could do. For crowd control, obviously, I always talk about cryo freeze with liquid nitrogen is literally broken. Again, liquid nitrogen is actually broken. It removes all cooldown. Liquid nitrogen does. Just make sure not to put on elemental pop, because then it will slow down your liquid nitrogen procs. You can use any of the other augments as well, the major augments with it. But that's gonna be just superior for crowd control and bonus damages from them freezing. Deadwire is also gonna be really good. Obviously, if you're working with those disciples and if you've got amalgams as well. And then obviously just for raw damage, I'll just honestly say just use a good weapon with double tap. If you haven't checked out my double tap deep dive, go check out my double tap deep dive. I break down everything for you so you can make sure you have the best setups for the types of weapons and the types of strategies that you're having. It's literally going to mathematically outperform Napalm Burst set up against elites anyway. So after all that testing, my conclusion, obviously you already know, is undeniable. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments section down below. But Big Game is one of the most disappointing augments for any of the ammo mods so far. The mod simply just does not support its use in any serious real loadout. For perspective, Big Game with extension would only do that 13.1% max compared to, again, compared to extension by itself, or extension with thermite doing over 50% of a mangler's health. Like, that just does not compare. Even when you compare this to like double tap and double impact, which increase your weapon's sustained DPS by up to 71%, that's literally a game-changing difference. So if you've been using Big Game thinking it substantially boosts Napalm Burst against elite enemies, I'm sorry to say, but you've been misled. The real power of Napalm Burst comes from the other augment combinations. And if you found any of this information valuable, drop a like and let me know in the comment section if you have been running Big Game in your loadouts. And let me know, will you be switching after seeing these results? If you also want to see how we test these live, catch one of my streams where we dig into the raw data behind Black Ops 6 Zombies. But before you go, I'm currently running a fundraiser for the Brain and Spine group, supporting military veterans battling brain and spine injuries. Obviously, this is a huge cause for me, because if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that, I was someone who's faced a lot of injury in the Marine Corps, and I also nearly became a doctor of physical therapy. And you guys can donate directly through YouTube on any of my recent videos, including this one and my recent live streams. Just look for the little donation panel either on the left or right side or down below, depending on the platform what you're watching this on. This is partnered officially with YouTube, so 100% of your donations go directly to the charity, not through me. I don't manage or touch any of it. So as a rule of thumb though, never donate to another YouTuber directly for a fundraiser. Always use YouTube's official methods and channels like this one. Also, with Elden Ring, with Elden Ring Night Rain approaching, I've already started posting some Night Rain content on the channel. And if you enjoy my data-driven approach to zombies, you're going to love how I break down the boss mechanics and combat, weapon stats, and game systems in Elden Ring as well. So make sure to check out those videos to get hyped for this new DLC. But with that, guys, have a beautiful goddamn day, and I will see you guys in the next deep dive. Bye, guys.